I've been involved in studying media now for 15 years. And in that time period, we went from 25 major media corporations in the country down to less than 10. And young people quit reading newspapers. So principally in television, it's entertainment. So we have literally a society that's the best entertained, least informed society in the world. And as Neil Postman said that 20 years ago, it's more true today. So when serious things emerge and happen, people are often, they may be shocked by them. I'm certainly shocked by 9/11. But there isn't an understanding of the deep politics of what that means and where that's coming from and where we're going as a country. Since 9/11, we've moved more in the direction of news in this country being managed. We just simply have been using the terminology managed news. So that the news stories you see nationally, that's not local, so I mean, I'm not talking, somebody ran over the cat in your local activities, but nationally, almost every major story today has been prepackaged by a public relations firm that works for government or a big corporation. WPP, Omnicom, Interpublic Group are the three biggest PR firms in the world. They've merged since 9/11, taken over what was Helen Nolan, Burson Marsteller, some of the big ones are now part of this package. 176,000 employees spread all over the world, in every country. They create the news. They package the news. So, particularly here in the United States, I had said earlier how Hillary Clinton went before the Foreign Relations Committee this week and asked for $48 billion so that they could do better in public relations. Because she said, oh, well, the US media, we're just not keeping up with Al Jazeera or Russia Today or the Chinese news. Because we can get that. We can get Al Jazeera. You can get Russia Today on the internet and that. And that's, young people are being strongly influenced by that. So she wants, $50 billion more to counter that. That means $50 million more to build more propaganda, to talk about the American way of being and the lies, whether it's weapons of mass destruction or all the lies that we've been facing here for the past decade. And that's the threat of Al Jazeera, that's the threat of Russia Today, is they're telling news, and we're not. We're telling packaged stories that fit the mythology of who we are as a people, that we all want to believe in ourselves. We're not torturers, we're not murderers. That's not the American way, but that's what's happening. So when ACLU came out with, in 2005, in October, they did a press release, and they had acquired through the Freedom of Information Act 44 autopsy reports that had been done on civilians who died while in U.S. custody during the first 2 years of the war. These autopsy reports were graphic descriptions of the bodies that were done by U.S. military doctors, and these were multiple theater operators, Afghanistan, Iraq, different sites all over. For 23 of these, the cause of death was listed as homicide. They were just murdered. And with clear condition of the bodies on all the autopsy reports, that people were tortured to death. Suffocation, bruises, broken bones, extensive physical damage. These were mostly young people too. And then the balance of the autopsy reports, the cause of death was primarily listed as heart failure. So people died their heart stopped while they were being tortured. Now, ACLU made no promise that these people were tortured to death. And it was pretty hard. AP was pretty hard-pressed to say, okay, well, we're going to do a release on this. Here's the facts. You can still go see these autopsy reports. They're online. And so they AP puts out a story. It goes to all 1,700 dailies in the United States. It goes to all 5,000 radio and television news programs. MSNBC put it on their website, but they didn't put it on the news. There was no television news about it whatsoever. And it wasn't in any newspapers, except a few. The biggest was the Los Angeles Times, was on page 84, a fairly small article, they cut it down. The Seattle paper had it buried in a bigger story about Iraq that day. There was some in the Midwest here and there. And that was it, and then it's never mentioned again. So Abu Ghraib happened later, but never mentioned the autopsy reports of the validated, tortured to death people that we had. Instead, Congress the next year passed what's the military budget. They said no more Freedom of Information Acts will be honored under current military operations. So they shut the door. And that's the way the war's been. And we were lied to about weapons of mass destruction, but it has continued on. So, since 9/11, since that big coup that literally happened then, and you know what happened on 9/11? Not only did the Building 7 fall down, and nobody can explain why, except it looks like controlled demolition quite clearly, and they found nanothermite in the dust. But at 10 o'clock that morning, we instituted the continuity of government that the executive office said, we're now in a state of emergency and we're going to implement plans for continuity of government. That means that these underground cities in Pennsylvania and in Colorado Springs, these underground bunkers that were built during the Cold War to run the government if we had a nuclear exchange, went into full operation. So we wonder where the Patriot Act came from. 2 weeks after 9/11, there's a 1,000-page document, it just appears. The Congress doesn't really even get to read it, and they're voting on it the next day. It's completely changed civil liberties and the structure of how this country is run. Completely. The continuity of government has been executive orders every year since then, including under Obama, keeping that in operation legally. We don't know what they're funding it, we don't know what they're doing, it's just that there's hundreds of people who work here and they're planning and managing the war on terrorism. That's terrifying to me. That should be terrifying to all of us. There's a secret government that Bill Moyers talked about 15 years ago, and everybody, that's a conspiracy. No, this is real. Congress doesn't even know. They're not even involved. Peter Dale Scott's new book, The War Machine, covers this quite significantly, and he relates it to every time we go into the theater of operations, whether it's the Golden Triangle or it's Sicily, or now it's Afghanistan, the heroin flows from those areas. And that heroin is billions and billions of dollars. And so, is this a conspiracy to talk about this in an open way? Of course men get in rooms and plan. Of course they do conspiracies. All the time. Every corporate board of directors that plans to maximize their profits, and they're going to do a little shady or bribe a dictator, that they're conspiring. And it goes on all the time. And we must not be afraid of that word. Conspiracies exist. Power exists. People use that power to manipulate and take advantage, to create laws and pass laws and get ready for things. So, our number one story in our book this year is the economic collapse of the dollar. That's inevitable. It's happening as we speak. But the US dollar is no longer going to be the reserve currency for the world. It has been since World War II. So all the trading, all the oil trading, all the trading between nations is in dollars. Now the first country to stop using dollars for trading oil was Iraq. Saddam Hussein did. He started trading oil in euros. The first thing we did once we took over the oil industry was switch it back. And you know what happened to him. The dollar, trillions of dollars. The Chinese have an extra $1 trillion. The Saudis have an extra $1 trillion. There's hundreds of billions of dollars out there in the world. Most of it's in treasury bonds, which is what the debt is. And we don't have enough stuff the Chinese want to buy from us. So there's a surplus dollars. Now, the Chinese last year quit buying treasury bonds. And they made a deal with the Russians that they're no longer going to trade in dollars, and the two countries, as of Thanksgiving of this year, are trading in their own currencies. China trades with Brazil in their own currencies. The Bolivarian nations are creating their own currency called the sucre. And And they'll be trading among themselves and dollars won't be part of it. So the dollar is being undermined, and we're going to see trillions of dollars available in the world that we keep creating. So last November, we created in the central bank, through the feds, $600 billion more dollars. Put on a computer, $600 billion, there it is. And they bought treasury bonds to protect the treasury bond market. So they just created that money. So what happens if you keep creating money, more and more money? What you got starts to go down in value. That's where we're going to be seeing these inflations. I mean, we'll watch gas prices go up and everything else too. I mean, we see the prices double in Walmart in a year. This is inevitable. They know it's going to happen and they're planning for it. Now, to protect those profits, Mike Hudson at the University of Pennsylvania, the economist there, he's saying that the plan is to reduce working wages of Americans by a third, which will help keep corporations profitable. That's the goal for all of us. Our wages have been going down for 40 years. We're going to go down even more. So all of a sudden now, inside the media, there's the fears of these overpaid public workers and the pension plans that they're getting, and this big scandal. There's not enough money. There's more money in this country than there ever was. It's just concentrated in the top 1% of the people. I mean, it's the Gilded Age, only more so. And that's when the progressive movement started 100 years ago, 110 years ago, after the 94 recession, 1894. And there was, a real movement to try to reshape. It was our great-grandparents. It was my grandfather telling me the story about the octopus in the 50s and fighting the Southern Pacific Railroad and the power that represented. And, so we've done this before. We had a labor movement in the 30s that stood up and said, we have the right to have unions. And we had a general strike in San Francisco that shut down the entire West Coast and shut down the entire Bay Area in 1934. And the mayor and the ship owners association, they gave in. Because the power is with us. The power is with the people. Non-cooperation, you can shut a country down like they did in Egypt. We're talking revolutionary democracy here, in a very real way. It's something that's emerging in the world. And they, the power elite, are getting ready for it. They know the economic conditions are going to be severe. They know that there's going to be people. They're trying to they're planning this out. That, the Tea Party, the top-down fund. The Tea Party is not a movement. The Tea Party is 6 major groups funded by the Koch brothers and other right-wing organizations that have these events where people who are angry and upset with the economy and they've lost their job or whatever, they're upset, they show up and they make this big deal, we're a party, we're a movement, we're the grassroots on it. This is a top-down. We're bottom-up. We're the bottom-up. And we're the ones that know that this war is costing us $1 trillion a year in terms of military spending, which is more than the rest of the world spends on the military combined. And we have 1,000 military bases worldwide. And that these bases, they're not to protect us. These bases are to protect transnational corporate profits and the central banks in Europe and Japan and the major cities. And they're meant to encircle China, which is our main economic rival. They're setting us up for World War III and IV and V down the road. But they're so powerful. Our weapons are so powerful that nobody's going to want to take us on. That's the goal. That's the weapons from space. Laser beams and all, the technology weapons that will kill anybody anywhere, putting sound in your brain, stopping your heart with electromagnetic pulse from 2 miles away. These are all in the operations are being developed. So powerful, so controlling. And then with Homeland Security, let me think about this. $50 billion goes into this central Homeland Security Control Agency through the Justice Department that's operating immigration ICE, immigration customs, that's operating, working at the airports, it's funding police departments to do these DUI license searches. How many have ever been to one of these where you get into a tunnel and there's cops on all sides of you and you have to show your license? It's just a few. All the kids have. I passed my class that, they all raised their hand. Yeah, I've been through that. I went through one of those just recently. I was in Lodi, I had my parents with me. My father's 86 and my mom's 83. I was driving their Cadillac, and we go through one of these DUIs. Get your license out, get your license out. Want to see your license. Okay, fine, cops on this side, red lights over here, big bus over here to put people in to catch, and I get out and the cop says, give me your license. Give it to him. He goes, where you been tonight? What business? My father said, don't argue with it, don't argue with it. I said, this is a violation of our Fourth Amendment rights to argue with it. And I felt like Humphrey Bogart, in Paris, and the Gestapo stopped, what's your business being out tonight? Now we're getting ready. This happens in airports, it happens on our streets. I mean, it's like they're preparing us. Saying, okay, you have to, you're not going to ask any questions. Don't yell, don't say anything. So they're catching 2 or 3 drunk drivers in one of these operations and 30 or 40 people who are undocumented. And they take their cars from them. The city of Petaluma in the last 5 years has confiscated 2,000 automobiles. The tow truck companies get them and they sell them. These people don't go back and get their cars. We had it approved to have driver's licenses for undocumented people in the state of California, and the governor vetoed it. So, these people who are caught with, I've got students in my classes who were born in another country and have lived here their whole life. They came here when they were 3. And they can go to school, they can get in school, they have to pay it all out of their own pockets. But they're not going to be able to legally work when they get out of college. The DREAM Act was filibustered by the Republicans. So this year alone, 400,000 people have been deported. So if they get picked up in Ukiah, they can be put in a warehouse at the San Francisco airport for a couple of days, waiting to get enough to fill an airplane. These are rooms like this, maybe with a bathroom, and that's it. There's no facilities, there's no sleeping beds. You get cookies and a drink and juice. We interviewed 20 people that have been through this process last year. And there's 186 private facilities in this country that the Nation magazine was able to identify that aren't jails, they're just simply holding facilities that ICE uses to grab people and put them in a box. And you may not even know what's happening. You drive right by and you wouldn't even know that there's people in that box right now. They were bragging it through ICE that we can make anybody disappear in this country. And they can. They can make us disappear. And so, from the top down, we now have what's called Falcon, Federal and Local Cops Organized Nationally. Operation Falcon has been in business since 2005. Falcon is mass arrest practicing. So you'll take 10,000 people who have their felony warrant for them, and you'll build a list, and you coordinate with the Justice Department, through the state police, the FBI, Secret Service, IRS, the post office, all kinds of participants involved in this, right down to the street level SWAT teams. And in a 72-hour period, you go out and find those 10,000 people and arrest them. 900 police agencies coordinated through the Department of Justice. We've never had anything like that in this country before. So these are our local police, getting paid double time to do these events and to do these Falcon operations to practice and be able to do mass arrests on a scale in the tens of thousands. So now we're after the immigrants. And then we're after the terrorists, and then we're after the immigrants. And then they come for who? Dissenters? So, this is the state. This is the state. This is serious. This is the state that we're in. And the media won't tell us anything of this. Habeas corpus was suspended 5 years ago. Any person in this room, any citizen or non-citizen, can have their rights to habeas corpus in a due process suspended by the President of the United States. Period. It's legal. Everything that Hitler did was legal. They passed laws to allow him to do it. So, we don't hear this in It's all, entertainment or something to make us afraid. It's the fear, it's the factors of concern and control. And it really is a form of mind control, of keeping us kind of misinformed, afraid of each other, afraid of someone who's a little different, informing on each other. This is the state that we're in. This is the state of America today. And it's not fun to talk about. It's not pleasant, but it's a crisis. We are in a truth emergency in this country. The best entertained, least informed people, there's a kind of a hyper reality that emerges. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what to trust. There's so many different stories and rumors and things like that. And when you're watching television, it's even worse. So it's almost like you're in a state of excited delirium, where you're excited and it's emotional, and there's a freeway massacre, or the bombs going off in Iraq or Afghanistan, or something else terrible is happening, and there's kind of this excited delirium of knowinglessness, because you don't know what's really going on. You don't know what the powerful really are doing. And full transparency of the government, of what we have as operational government, it doesn't exist, only on the surface. So democracy is in peril. We have a power elite in the country that's a corporation. We could run a corporation because they're people for president. Let's vote Lockheed Martin as president. Sounds absurd, right? But that's the way the laws are being developed and interpreted. And that's not us. I'm a Catholic, Republican farm kid. And I've got the same values I had when I grew up in Lodi. The belief in due process and freedom and our liberties and the important things in our lives about our family and hard work and truth. And I still believe in that stuff, and you do too. And we can't be afraid. We have to stand up. We're going to have to speak out in a very, very real way. All of us, every day, as we go through life. This isn't something we can just let it slide under the rug. We need a movement of the people that are very powerful, it's very democratic, and it's very truthful about what's really going on. And any group, that's for peace, any peace group, Republicans or Democrats, we got a two-party corporatocracy. And we can't be afraid to ask the questions that sound insane. Oh, we have the best election systems in the world. We're fair. We can't possibly question that. 2004 election, 8 million vote difference between what the exit poll said and what the voting machine said. Now, 8 million votes in only 18 states. 2/3 of the states matched. California, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida had ranges from 3 to 8% difference. The exit poll said Kerry won by 6 million votes. Bush won by 3 million. So there's about an 8 to 9 million difference. Exit polls cannot possibly be that wrong. They're 99% right. You poll 24,000 people, which is what the poll was, which is 10 times a Gallup poll, almost 20 times a Gallup poll. It's a 99% accuracy rate of reflecting the entire population. You do it randomly throughout the country. You have somebody who they just voted for when they walk out of the poll. It's not an error factor. People don't forget what they did 5 minutes ago, who they voted for. And so 2004 election was fraudulent. So was 2000, for that matter. And there's a high suspicions about New England states in 2008. Hope for change, Obama? Nothing changed. Certainly nothing changed at the highest level. We just got a smarter, more slick PR guy who happens to be black. Oh, yeah, okay, well, we're getting so liberal now. And right away, the war's expanded. Afghanistan, right? Obama has special forces operating in 75 nations in the world. This was on the one-time one, you don't see it here. 75 nations were in there killing people. All throughout Africa, all throughout South America, all throughout the Middle East. This is not the America we grew up in. If you read the Washington Post, they will quote the Iraq body count, which has the Iraqi civilians killed a little over 100,000. Now the WikiLeaks told us about 20,000 more or so they've upped it a little bit. So they're saying about 120,000 people died in the last 8 years since we invaded their country. It's 10 times that, yeah. Because there's been 3 national surveys done, which no newspaper in this country will even talk about. 2 by Johns Hopkins University, 2003, 2006. 2003, 160,000, 2006, 600,000, and at the end of 2007, National Opinion Business Research Group out of Great Britain did a national survey, a couple of 2,400 families interviewed, and they pegged it at 1 million. The Nation magazine came out 2 years ago, after the London study had come out, and said, they asked MIT to look at how the statistics were done and how that was right. And MIT looked at it, their National Research Bureau. They came back to the Nation magazine and they published this and said, yeah, 1 million dead Iraqis. And within 3 months, we saw planted news stories from supposedly a government official in Baghdad reported through AP that the deaths were around 100,000 that they anticipated at that time. And it ran in all the papers in the country, 100,000 Iraqi deaths. It ran not only in April of that year, 2 years ago, this April. It ran in July and they reran it again in October. Same story. We're being lied to daily by corporate media. It's not against the law to lie to the public. There's no law that says they can lie to you. Helen Nolan didn't get in trouble when they lied before Congress. Remember at the beginning of the Gulf War? A Kuwaiti nurse is brought before Congress named Naira, and she testifies that she saw the Iraqi soldiers dump the babies out of the incubator in the hospital in Kuwait City. Tears in her eyes. It was a lie. She was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador. She had been trained by Nolan with the approval of the White House to tell that story and trained to cry on as she was doing it. It's not against the law to lie to the public. It's not against the law to take a story like Jessica Lynch and the rescue of Jessica Lynch and to blow it up in a big, phony story where they could have just driven up there and got her out of the hospital and had to have the special forces going in and have the whole thing laid out. The same day, the diversion story. That's the same day that the tanks rolled into Baghdad. It's the same day we shelled the Palestine hotel and killing journalists there. It's the same day we bombed Al Jazeera and killed one of their journalists. And what did we get? We got Jessica Lynch. The rest of the world knows we bombed Al Jazeera deliberately. We did it twice. We did it in Afghanistan and we did it in Baghdad. And now Hillary's going before Congress saying, oh, we need more money to counter Al Jazeera. We're being lied to. Very deliberately. This is not any accident anymore. This isn't just business opinion stuff. The stories that we look at, the stories we cover, I mean, we had a housing bill, right? Oh, this caused us a big problem. We had to spend $1 trillion to bail out the banks. Goldman Sachs knew it was coming. Lehman Brothers knew it was coming. They were buying derivatives, which are insurance policies against their investments in these housing funds. But the bailouts, they were timed. Goldman Sachs, no, let's let Lehman Brothers go down. They're weaker than us. We'll let them go down first. And then we'll bail out AIG because they owe us $80 billion. And then we'll bail out everybody, put that money, we're still going, we're still creating money for this bailout, protection of the central banks worldwide. And Goldman Sachs runs the Treasury, and they run the Fed. I mean, they came out small like ever. They're making more money now than ever. All our executives get these multi-million-dollar bonuses. That's who we got to stop. That's who we got to stop. And so this is an engaging time. And we can't look the other way. But to tell the truth, we have to engage. We have to address this. I mean, Chomsky's using the word fascism. Chris Hedges is using the word fascism. The F word is here, folks, in a very big way. And it's all, you can still go shopping. You could go shopping and have a nice time there in the Weimar Republic, too. On the other side of that, underneath, is the danger. When people will be snatched off the streets, right in front of us, and just carried away. Or we're torturing people to death, openly. I'm not ashamed about it. Oh, no, we're just drowning them a little. It's not really torture to drown them.